what I do in my personal Qigong practice, an update. And this is a special update. It is a COVID edition. That's going to be the topic of this episode of Qi Life. All right, so I have recently had COVID, and because of that, it's changed what I'm doing in my Qigong practice. And so this is another update similar to ones I've done before. Just about what I'm currently doing in my Qigong practice, which I'll preface this by saying this is not going to be some magic recipe of what Qigong practices you should do if you have COVID. Because different people will respond differently. Different people will be at different places with what's going on in their body, their energy, as they maybe deal with that illness. And also you may know different Qigong practices or different Qigong practices that you particularly like and so on. It's going to be a more general thing of the pattern that I went through in adapting my practice because I had COVID, which just as a general example of how once you know lots of different practices, what you do will change from time to time, and in this instance, when you've been sick. So, first thing that maybe we can draw from this, yes, I do lots of Qigong, and I still got COVID. Specifically, it was over Christmas and New Year's, which was, it wasn't such a terrible thing, but it meant I didn't have a lot of the social engagements and interactions that I'd normally have. I was keeping away from people because I didn't want to pass it on, didn't want other people to get sick, which is really something we should do. It's not just a COVID thing. Any sort of infectious, spreadable disease, it's really the polite, kind, considerate thing is to not try to pass it to other people. So I had a very quiet Christmas and New Year's. But I do Qigong, all this sort of thing. How come I still got COVID? How come I'm not invincible and never ever get sick? Fortunately, I don't get sick all that often, right? Hopefully, the Qigong definitely helps me in that. But I'm not invincible. I still have frailties, weaknesses. And in particular, what happened in the lead up to, before Christmas, and then before I ended up getting COVID, was I had a whole series of things, which meant I was unexpectedly up in the middle of the night having to deal with stuff. And each of them stressful things in a variety of ways. One, some stressful things to do with some key aspects of my business that just needed to be attended to, and so I was up in the middle of the night taking care of it. Another one was to do with a potentially a safety issue in the environment around me, which I needed to get up and deal with in the middle of the night for several hours. And then another one that was more personal, and of all of them, it was probably the one that I maybe had the most control over, to some extent brought on myself, but it was something I needed to deal with. And I think that's the one that had the biggest impact on me, actually, though, because while the others were stressful, I generally handle stress pretty well and just ride through it. Doesn't mean it doesn't take a toll, of having to respond to things, interrupted sleep, and so on. The last one, again, as I mentioned, more personal, and I found more emotionally challenging. And that one afterwards, like, oh wow, that had an impact on me. But combination of those three, and there were a few other things as well, all together ran me down, made me more susceptible, even though I do my Qigong practice, lead a reasonably healthy lifestyle. Not everything's perfect about my lifestyle either, I spend way too much time sitting in front of a computer working than would be ideal, but it's just kind of what I do as part of running my business, teaching Qigong effectively. There's a lot of time spent in front of a computer doing that. It'd be much nicer to not need to do that. But ran me down, and I was susceptible. I got COVID. Now, it wasn't so bad, but definitely had an impact on me. So I'll tell you what I did in terms of my practice over that time. So to begin with, for 2 days, I basically spent 2 days in bed, not really doing much of anything. And again, it wasn't that I couldn't have got up and done things, but I felt like the best thing was for me to just rest. And so I did. And so depending on how you look at it, I wasn't doing any Qigong practice, or my Qigong practice was listening to my body and going, you know what, the best thing is to rest. Then for 2 more days, I did start to get up and move around and do things. I started to do a bit of work on my computer. I started to walk around a bit and so on. But I still didn't do any specific Qigong practice. I felt what was best for me was to just leave that for now, just let my body do its thing. Focused on good nutrition, not a lot of food, but making sure I was getting the things that I needed, getting some sunlight, so I got some vitamin D and so on, but that was it. That's what I felt was best for me at that time. And then on the 5th day, that was when I felt, right, I'm ready to start doing some practice again. And I started really gently. So specifically, I did some sound practices, and specifically, I felt the need to do some things to clean out my liver. And, this is probably related to, the viral load, the body processing, the different waste products from dealing with a virus, puts a bit of strain on the liver. Can also put a bit of strain on the kidneys as well. In this case, I didn't really feel the need to focus on my kidneys, but I focused on my liver. And so I did some practice with a sound and a few other things to help clear my liver, and then some general sound practice to harmonize my energy. And then I also did 5 waves, which is a really, really gentle moving Qigong practice, harmonizing the 5 elements, just to generally get everything moving. And I also did alignment, centering, and opening, which is a series of movements that what you can use in many contexts, but within the Long White Cloud Qigong practices, we often use as preparation for wild animal play practices, which are they tend to be quite vigorous. And so the alignment, centering, and opening, it aligns your energy, it centers your energy, that's really good. And it opens. And so specifically, it opens the spine and opens up to allow the energy to flow through the spine, through the sympathetic nervous system. And I felt like that at that time. I felt that was a really useful thing for me, because one of the things, particularly if we don't move around a lot, remember I spent 2 days pretty much just in bed, and also we build up some tension and so on. Sometimes the energy in our spine gets a bit blocked. And so that's what I did for a couple of days. Some sound practice, 5 waves, and alignment, centering, and opening. So it was just a quite short but quite focused, very gentle practice. After those couple more days, so probably about 7 days now since I sort of had the symptoms, I felt like, okay, things are starting to go a bit better now. And I added in some of the Qigong walking that I had been doing prior to getting COVID. I'm like, I'm ready to do this now. But I only did that for, I don't remember, it might have just been 1 day, might have been a couple of days. And then I felt, you know what, just where I was at with my body, with my energy, I was at the stage where I was starting to feel pretty good, but like things were hanging on, and that I needed something a bit more vigorous to now actively drive out the remains of the illness. So I started doing nothing at all. Then gentle practice, and then at this point I was like, you know what? And it was only a few days later. I feel ready to do something more vigorous to actually clear stuff out. And so at that point, I started doing some wild animal play, which, as I just mentioned, they do tend to be. They have a natural tendency to be more vigorous. Think of the energy of a wild animal, dynamic, strong, vital energy, and these practices cultivate that energy. They can be done in gentle ways, but the tendency is, even if you start doing them gentle, they lead you towards doing them in a more vigorous way. It's part of their inherent nature of them. And so specifically, what I started doing is, waking the Qi. I brought waking the Qi in as well. I felt that was really good to generally activate my energy. I continued with the sound practice. And then also, the alignment, centering, and opening, because it is a good preparation for the wild animal play. And what I've been doing is I've been doing all of the animal warm-ups for each of the animals. We do 5 animals in the wild animal play. There's a series of warm-ups that prepare the body, prepare the energy to fully embody the characteristics of that animal. And then, yeah, so I did all of the warm-ups for each of the 5 animals, and then I've been doing the play, which is much more free form, where we're really expressing the energy of the animal and moving around, doing the play of just one animal each day and rotating through them. And I've been doing them in I wouldn't say a super vigorous way just yet. I've been doing them in a moderate way, but that in itself is still quite vigorous. But it's been feeling really good. And it ties in actually with something I kind of had in mind anyway, that I would like to quite like to spend some time with the wild animal play this summer while the weather's good. It's hotter, it's sunnier, the ground is dry. It's a good time to be doing more yang, more active practices, harmonizing with the energy of the environment around us. And I had in mind I wanted to spend some time on the animal play because I haven't done a lot of them recently. And so to freshen them up for myself, and also because I am going to be teaching the Inner Fire Qigong program. It's not starting for a while. It's still, I guess it's a little over a month and a half away now. At the end of February, that's starting. That's the only time we're going to be teaching it this year. And in that program, we do the wild animal play, along with some other practices. We do Inner Fire breath work, we do Iron Shirt Qigong, we do a whole lot of breathing theory and application as well. And to freshen myself up, to prepare myself for teaching that, because we're only teaching it the one time this year. And also, whenever I revisit a set of practices, it can be really good to actually take a break from some practices. That doesn't mean a break from all practice necessarily. There's so many practices you can do, but take a break from some practices and then come back to them with fresh eyes. And then in doing that and spending enough time with those practices, I often find I'll get some new insights. Sometimes they're just little tiny insights. Sometimes they can be quite fundamental, quite profound. And I had thought, yeah, I want to spend some time with the animal play this summer, this year, and just in my own practice. Because like I said, I'm not teaching the Inner Fire program just yet. That's still, a while away. But just in my own practice, exploring it, enjoying it, getting the benefits of it, and then, possibly even getting some new insights about those practices. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's the update. Feeling pretty good. I feel like this is probably going to be the main focus of my practice for a while. At some point, that'll change again. And it could be that I swap my focus onto some other practices, or it could be that I continue with what I'm doing now and I also bring in some other practices as well. We'll see how that goes. I'll probably make an update at that point to again see just an example of how what you focus on in your own practice can change over time. Because of course, in addition to this, I'm also teaching Qigong in a variety of different formats, and I'm teaching different practices and therefore doing them as part of teaching those practices. But this is what I'm focusing in my personal practice at the moment. All right, if you're interested in the Inner Fire Qigong program, I'll make sure there's a link about that in the description below. I have also previously made vlogs more generally about what to do with your Qigong practice when you're sick. And I've also written at least one article about that as well, so I'll put links to those below as well, in case you're interested in reading or watching another video about that. Okay, I look forward to seeing you in another one soon.